I drove down the long gravel road toward my house in rural North Carolina, exhausted from 2 days of back-to-back meetings in Atlanta, wanting nothing more than to kick off my shoes and collapse on my couch. But as I got closer, something felt wrong.
Cars. Dozens of them.
Parked along both sides of the narrow road leading to my property. Expensive cars. Mercedes, BMWs, Teslas, Range Rovers. I slowed down, confused, my stomach already tightening with unease. This was my property. My private, gated property that I'd inherited after my parents died, that I'd spent 3 years and every dollar I had restoring from a rundown farmhouse into a beautiful home and thriving garden business. Nobody should be here. Nobody had permission to be here. And yet, as I turned the final corner and my house came into view, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A massive white tent. String lights everywhere. A DJ booth. Tables covered in linens. A full bar with a professional bartender. Flowers. Hundreds of flowers. And people. At least 200 people in formal attire, laughing, drinking champagne, celebrating something on my property without my knowledge, without my permission, without even telling me they were coming. And in the center of it all, in a white designer wedding gown that probably cost more than my truck, was my sister Diana, smiling for a professional photographer like she owned the place. My name is Laura Miller, and this is the story of how my family threw a $50,000 wedding on my property while I was out of town, treated me like an intruder in my own home, and learned the hardest lesson of their lives about respect, boundaries, and the legal consequences of thinking you can take whatever you want just because you're family. Growing up as Diana's older sister was like being a supporting character in someone else's movie. She was the star. Always. From the moment she was born, everything revolved around her. When she wanted dance lessons, my parents enrolled her in the most expensive studio in town. When I asked for art classes, they said we couldn't afford it. When Diana wanted a car for her 16th birthday, she got a brand new Lexus with a bow on top. When I turned 16, I got a card that said, maybe next year. When she decided to drop out of college after one semester because she wasn't feeling it, my parents supported her decision and continued paying her rent. When I graduated with honors and asked if they could help with my student loans, they said I was an adult now and needed to figure it out myself. Every birthday, every holiday, every single family gathering centered around Diana. What Diana wanted, what Diana needed, what would make Diana happy. And I learned early that my role was to stay quiet, stay helpful, and never, ever ask for the spotlight. When our parents passed away 3 years ago in a car accident, they left us their property. 15 acres of land with an old farmhouse in rural North Carolina. The will said we would split it 50-50. Diana took one look at the rundown house, the overgrown land, the repairs needed, and said she wanted cash instead. I'm not interested in playing farmer, she'd said, filing her nails. Just sell it and give me my half. But I didn't want to sell it. This was the last piece of our parents I had. So I took out a loan, bought out Diana's half, and spent the next 3 years pouring every ounce of energy and money I had into restoring it. I fixed the roof, replaced the plumbing, renovated the kitchen, restored the original hardwood floors, turned the overgrown jungle into beautiful landscaped gardens, started a small business growing organic produce and flowers that I sold at farmers markets and to local restaurants. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't easy, but it was mine. Something I'd built with my own hands. Diana, meanwhile, lived in Charlotte in an apartment our aunt paid for, worked part-time at a boutique when she felt like it, and spent most of her energy on Instagram curating an influencer lifestyle she couldn't actually afford. She visited my property exactly twice in 3 years, both times to ask if she could borrow money. I said no the first time. She cried and called me selfish. I said no the second time. She stopped speaking to me for 6 months. When she finally called me 2 months ago, I should have known something was up. Her voice was too sweet, too friendly.
Laura.
Oh my God, I've missed you so much. We need to catch up. We met for coffee. She showed me her engagement ring, a massive diamond I knew her fiancé, Trevor, couldn't afford on a sales associate salary. She talked about her wedding plans, the venue she wanted,
The dress.
the photographer, everything extravagant and expensive. Trevor's parents are helping, she said, but there's so much to pay for. Weddings are so expensive. I made sympathetic sounds, but kept my wallet closed. I'd learned that lesson. She never mentioned my property, never asked to use it, never even hinted at anything. So when I had to travel to Atlanta for 2 days for a wholesale meeting with a restaurant chain interested in buying my produce, I locked up my house, set the new security cameras I'd just installed, and left thinking everything would be fine. I'd be back in 48 hours. What could possibly happen? I found out exactly what could happen when I drove down my road and saw my property transformed into a wedding venue I never authorized. I parked my truck and walked toward the tent in complete shock. My gardens, which I'd spent months perfecting, were trampled by high heels. My greenhouse had people smoking cigarettes next to it. My driveway was blocked by a catering truck. And nobody, not a single person, seemed to think anything was wrong with this. I walked up to a woman with a clipboard who was clearly the wedding coordinator. "Excuse me, what is going on?" She barely looked at me. "The ceremony is about to start. If you're a guest, please find your seat."
I sitter her.
"I'm not a guest. I'm the owner of this property." She frowned. "No, you're not. This is the bride's family property." My jaw dropped. The bride is my sister, and she does not own this property.
I do.
The coordinator's eyes narrowed. "Look, I don't know what kind of drama you're trying to start, but this wedding cost $50,000. We're not stopping it because someone wants attention. Please leave the ceremony area." Before I could respond, a guest grabbed my arm. An older woman in a lavender dress and too much perfume. "Sweetie, this section is for family of the bride only. You'll need to move." I yanked my arm away. "I am family. I'm her sister." The woman looked me up and down, taking in my jeans and t-shirt, the dirt still on my boots from the garden work I'd done before I left for Atlanta. "The bride's sister is in the bridal party, honey. She's wearing a blush pink dress. You're clearly not her." If you're enjoying this story so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you've ever experienced something similar with family taking advantage of you, drop a comment below. I read every single one. I pushed past her and walked straight toward the tent where I could see Diana posing for photos with her bridesmaids. When she saw me, her face went white, then red. Then she plastered on a fake smile and rushed over.
Laura.
"Oh my God, you're back early."
Surprise?
She laughed nervously, gesturing at the chaos around us. "Isn't it beautiful?" I couldn't speak. Literally couldn't form words. My brain was trying to process the audacity, the entitlement, the sheer disrespect of what I was seeing. "You threw your wedding on my property," I finally said, voice shaking. "Without asking me, without telling me, without my permission." Diana's smile faltered. "I was going to tell you, but you've been so busy with your little farm thing, and I knew you'd make it complicated. This was easier." Easier. She threw a $50,000 wedding on property I worked myself to exhaustion to restore, and she called it easier. "Diana, this is illegal. You can't just use someone's property without permission." Her face hardened. "It's not someone's property. It's family property. And family supports each other. But you wouldn't know about that, would you? You've always been so selfish. So closed off. I needed this venue for my photos, Laura. Do you know how expensive real venues are? This place is perfect. You should be happy I chose it." I looked at my sister. Really looked at her. This woman who'd spent her entire life taking and never once saying thank you. This woman who walked away from the property when it was broken but came back to use it when it was beautiful. This woman who was standing on my land, in my gardens, surrounded by my flowers, and calling me selfish for being upset about it. "Get out," I said quietly. Her eyes widened.
What?
I raised my voice. "Get out. All of you. This is my property, and you're all trespassing." The music stopped. Conversations died. 200 people turned to stare at me, and Diana's face transformed into something I'd seen 1,000 times. The victim face. the performance she'd perfected over decades. Her eyes filled with tears. Her voice broke. "I can't believe you're doing this. I can't believe you're trying to ruin my wedding day, the most important day of my life." She turned to the crowd, to our relatives who'd flown in from 3 different states, to Trevor's family, who I'd never met. "My sister has always been jealous of me. She's never been able to handle when I'm the center of attention. And now she's trying to destroy my wedding because she can't stand seeing me happy." I felt every eye in that tent judge me. Saw the whispers, the head shakes, the looks of disgust. My Aunt Carol walked over, lips pressed into a thin line. "Laura, I understand you're upset, but this wedding is already happening. These people traveled. The money's been spent. Can't you just let Diana have this one day? One day. Like that made invading my property okay. Like that erased the fact that they'd all conspired to use my home without asking. She doesn't own this property," I said, looking at my aunt. "She sold her half to me 3 years ago. This is my private residence, and none of you had permission to be here." My Uncle Jeff joined in. "You're really going to be this petty? Over a party? She's your sister, Laura. This is what family does." I laughed. A bitter, hollow sound. Family asks. Family respects boundaries. Family doesn't break into someone's property and throw an event without permission. Trevor, Diana's new husband, finally stepped forward. He'd been hanging back, looking uncomfortable, but now he put on his man-of-the-house voice. "Look, we didn't think it would be a big deal. Diana said you'd be fine with it. We saved a lot of money using this place instead of renting a venue.
You should understand that."
You're always talking about being financially responsible." I stared at him. This man who just married my sister and thought using my property without permission was financially responsible behavior.
"Get out now."
Or I'm calling the police. Diana's tears turned to rage.
Fine.
"We'll leave. But don't ever expect me to forgive you for this. Don't ever expect this family to forget that you ruined my wedding." She grabbed Trevor's arm and stormed toward the parking area, her white dress dragging through the dirt she'd complained about 3 years ago. The guests began packing up.
Slowly.
Reluctantly. Shooting me dirty looks the whole time. The coordinator approached me, furious. "You realize we can't get a refund on any of this, right? The food, the flowers, the DJ. That's all money down the drain because you couldn't be flexible for one afternoon." I pulled out my phone, opened the security camera app. These cameras have been recording since the moment the first vehicle entered my property without authorization. I have footage of everything: the trespassing, the damage to my gardens, the commercial use of my private property. And in North Carolina, that's all illegal. Her face went pale. "I'm going to contact my lawyer," I continued. "And we're going to calculate damages. The cost to repair my lawn. Replace the plants that were destroyed. The loss of business because I can't access my greenhouse. The rental fee for commercial use of private property. All of it." The coordinator grabbed her clipboard and practically ran to her van. If this story is resonating with you, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more stories like this. And seriously, if you've dealt with family situations like this, share your story in the comments. You're not alone. It took 4 hours for everyone to clear out. 4 hours of people loading equipment, folding chairs, dismantling the tent, all while glaring at me like I was the villain. My Aunt Carol was the last to leave. She walked up to me with tears in her eyes. "I hope you're happy. You just destroyed your relationship with your sister. Over what? A lawn? Some flowers? Was your pride really worth it?" I looked at her. This woman who'd watched Diana get everything her entire life and never once questioned it. This woman who told me to be understanding when Diana dropped out of school, to be patient when Diana borrowed money she never repaid, to be flexible now that Diana had used my property without permission. My pride. I said quietly, "Aunt Carol, this isn't about pride. It's about the fact that my family thinks so little of me that they planned an entire wedding on my property and didn't even tell me. It's about the fact that when I showed up, I was treated like an intruder. It's about the fact that even now, after everything, you're asking me to apologize. She opened her mouth to argue, but I held up my hand. I'm done. Done being the understanding one, the flexible one, the one who's supposed to sacrifice so Diana can have everything she wants. She used my property without permission. That's trespassing. That's property damage. That's illegal. And there are consequences for that. My aunt left without another word, and I stood in my destroyed gardens, looking at the tire tracks in my grass, the trampled flower beds, the cigarette butts by my greenhouse, and I felt something I'd never felt before.
Clarity.
Cold. Perfect clarity. I wasn't going to let this go. I wasn't going to be guilted into forgiveness. I wasn't going to accept but she's family as an excuse for being disrespected in my own home. I called my lawyer that night, explained everything, sent her the security footage. She watched it in silence, then said words I'll never forget. Laura, you have an airtight case. Property trespassing. Unauthorized event on private property. Damage to landscaping and structures. Commercial use without consent. They're looking at significant fines. Possibly even criminal charges if you want to push it that far. I didn't want criminal charges. I'm not vindictive. But I did want justice. I wanted them to understand that you can't just take what isn't yours and expect no consequences. So, we calculated everything. The cost to resod the lawn where the tent stakes destroyed the grass, $12,000. The replacement cost for the flower beds that were trampled, $8,000. The repairs needed for the greenhouse where someone broke a panel, $3,000. The commercial use fee for hosting a 200-person event on private property without permission, $25,000. Property damage from vehicles driving on areas not meant for cars, $15,000. Lost business income because I couldn't access my gardens for scheduled deliveries, $7,000. Legal fees and consultation, $10,000. Total, $80,000. I had my lawyer send the bill to Diana, Trevor, and everyone who'd contributed money to the wedding. Because legally, they were all liable. The organizer who booked an illegal venue. The caterer who operated on private property without permits. Even the guests who'd been told it was authorized. The response came within 24 hours. My phone exploded. Calls from Diana, my aunt, my uncle, Trevor's parents, the wedding coordinator, everyone screaming about the invoice. Diana called me 17 times before I finally answered.
$80,000.
Are you insane? That's more than the wedding cost. We don't have that kind of money. I stayed calm. Ice cold. Then you shouldn't have hosted an unauthorized event on someone else's property. She started crying. Real tears this time, not the performance tears. Laura, please. We'll lose everything. Trevor's parents already took out a loan for the wedding. We can't afford this.
Please.
I'm begging you.
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. Just drop this. Please. For a moment, just a moment, I felt the old instinct kick in. The urge to fix things. To make it better. To be the understanding sister who sacrifices so Diana doesn't suffer. But then I remembered standing in my own driveway being told to leave. Remembered my aunt asking if my pride was worth ruining the wedding. Remembered 29 years of being the afterthought. You used my property without permission, I said. You lied about ownership. You damaged thousands of dollars worth of landscaping I spent years creating. You treated me like an intruder in my own home. And when I asked you to leave, you called me jealous and selfish in front of 200 people. I paused. Let that sink in. This isn't about money, Diana. This is about respect. Something you've never shown me. She was sobbing now. But we're sisters. We're family. How can you do this to me? I laughed. That same bitter laugh from the wedding. You keep using that word, family, like it means I'm supposed to let you walk all over me.
But family means respect.
It means asking permission. It means acknowledging boundaries.
And you did none of that.
I could hear Trevor in the background telling her to hang up, to call their lawyer, that they didn't have to pay anything. Actually, you do, I said, loud enough for him to hear. I have everything documented. timestamps, video evidence, witness statements from my neighbors who saw the whole thing. Your wedding coordinator signed contracts using my address without authorization. You're legally liable. If you've made it this far and you're feeling the emotions of this journey, smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And let me know in the comments, have you ever had to choose yourself over family? The call ended, and the real battle began. Diana and Trevor tried to fight it. Hired a lawyer who told them exactly what my lawyer had told me. They didn't have a case. You can't use private property for commercial purposes without permission. You can't cause property damage and claim ignorance. You can't trespass and call it a family favor. They tried to negotiate. Offered $10,000. I said no. Offered $20,000. I said no. My aunt called crying, begging me to settle for less. My uncle threatened to cut me out of the family. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had opinions about my character. The family group chat I'd been part of for years turned into a Laura-bashing session. Messages flying about how I was heartless, cruel, money-hungry, vindictive. How I'd changed. How money had made me cold. How I wasn't the sister they knew anymore. And they were right. I wasn't. Because the sister they knew let them treat her like a doormat. Let them take and never say thank you. Let them use her property, her time, her energy, and her resources without ever reciprocating. That sister was gone. And the woman who replaced her had boundaries, had self-respect, and had a lawyer. 2 months later, they paid. Not the full $80,000. We settled for $65,000 after negotiations. Diana and Trevor had to take out a loan. His parents contributed. My aunt and uncle chipped in out of shame. The wedding coordinator's insurance covered part of it. And every single dollar went toward repairing my property and paying my legal fees. With the leftover money, I installed a proper fence around my entire property. An 8-foot privacy fence with a locked gate and no trespassing signs. I upgraded my security system. And I invested in my business, expanding my greenhouse and hiring an assistant. My family didn't speak to me for 6 months. Complete radio silence. No holiday invitations. No birthday calls. Nothing. And honestly, it was the most peaceful 6 months I'd had in years. Then, unexpectedly, my younger cousin Maya called. She was 23, just graduated college, struggling to find her footing. Laura, I need to tell you something. What you did at Diana's wedding. It inspired me. I was shocked. Inspired you? She laughed. Everyone in the family talks about it like you're the villain. But I was there. I saw how they treated you. And I saw you stand up for yourself when everyone told you not to. I've spent my whole life being the peacemaker. The one who keeps quiet so nobody fights. And watching you choose yourself, it made me realize I can do that too. We talked for 2 hours. About boundaries. About family dynamics. About the difference between being loved and being used. And she told me something I'll never forget. You know what's funny? After the lawsuit, Diana and Trevor's marriage is a mess. They fight constantly about money.
About the debt. About blame.
Meanwhile, you're thriving. Your business is growing. You seem happy. And everyone's confused because they thought you'd be miserable without the family. But you're not. You're free. She was right. I was free. Free from the expectation that I should sacrifice myself for people who wouldn't do the same for me. Free from the guilt that came with saying no. Free from the belief that family meant tolerating disrespect. A year after the wedding, Diana sent me a letter. Not an email. Not a text. A handwritten letter. I almost threw it away without reading it. But curiosity won. The letter was 3 pages long. It started with excuses. Then blame. Then guilt-tripping. Then finally, buried on page 3, something that almost looked like accountability. I took advantage of you. I know that now. I treated you like someone who existed to make my life easier. And when you finally said no, I couldn't handle it. I still think the lawsuit was extreme. But I understand why you did it. I understand that I pushed you too far. That we all did. I don't expect forgiveness. But I wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. I read that letter 3 times, looking for the trap, the manipulation, the angle. But maybe, for the first time in her life, Diana was being genuine. I didn't respond.
Didn't feel the need to.
Because her realization didn't change what happened.
Didn't undo the damage.
Didn't erase years of being treated like a convenience. 2 years after the wedding, I ran into Diana at a grocery store. We made eye contact across the produce section. She looked older, tired. The influencer glow was gone. She hesitated, then walked over. Laura. Her voice was quiet.
Eat.
We stood there in awkward silence. Then she said, "Your property looks beautiful. I drove past it last month. The fence, the new gardens. It's really something." I nodded. "Thank you." More silence. Then, "I'm sorry. For all of it. I know I said it in the letter, but I need to say it to your face.
I'm sorry."
I looked at my sister. This woman who'd made my childhood difficult. Who'd taken my parents' attention. Who'd used my property. Who'd called me selfish when I finally stood up for myself. And I felt nothing.
No anger. No resentment.
Just emptiness where she used to live in my heart. "I believe you," I said. "But sorry doesn't fix everything." Her eyes filled with tears. "I know. I just wanted you to hear it." We went our separate ways. And I realized something important. Forgiveness isn't mandatory. Reconciliation isn't required. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is acknowledge someone's apology and still choose distance. Choose protection. Choose yourself. My name is Laura Miller. I'm 31 years old now. I own 15 acres of beautiful North Carolina land. I run a successful garden business. I have friends who respect me, boundaries that protect me, and peace that I fought for. My family still doesn't fully understand what happened. They still think I overreacted, that I was cruel, that I chose money over family. But they're wrong. I didn't choose money over family. I chose self-respect over being used. I chose boundaries over being bulldozed. I chose myself over people who only saw me as a resource. And that choice, that terrifying, difficult, liberating choice, saved my life. Because here's what nobody tells you about toxic family dynamics. They don't end until you end them. They don't change until you change them. And they don't respect you until you demand respect. Diana threw a $50,000 wedding on my property without permission. And I sent her an $80,000 bill with documentation proving she earned every cent of it. Some people called it petty. I call it justice. Some people called it heartless. I call it boundaries. Some people said I destroyed the family. I say I freed myself from people who only valued me when I was useful. And that freedom, that beautiful, hard one, expensive freedom, it was worth every single dollar of that settlement. Worth every lost relationship. Worth every uncomfortable conversation. Because I don't live for my family's approval anymore. I live for my own peace. And that's worth more than any wedding, any relationship, any guilt trip they could ever throw at me. That's worth everything.